Hello, welcome to a special video looking at the Times Championship final puzzle. So this is the Times Crossword Championship for cryptic crosswords. Happens every October now, and it was 2 days ago on the 11th of October. Simon and myself both qualified for the semi-final of 57 people, and then I qualified for the 5-person final along with former winners Matthew Marcus, David Howell and Roger Crabtree, and last year's runner-up Chloe Hutton. And the 5 of us appeared on stage and had to solve this puzzle in a maximum of half an hour, but first fully correct answer wins it. And I thought you might be interested in me calling it up and talking through what I think I was thinking as we went through the puzzle. I'll see if I can remember the order I solved the clues. I certainly remember something about that. And you might be interested in my thought processes going through it and my experiences of the final. So there is a video footage of the 5 of us on stage with Mick Hodgkin introducing us. I'll include a link to that. And you can watch the minutes go by if you want in that, and hopefully it'll accord with what I'm telling you, although there is a chance it won't, because memories can vary, as the late Queen said. Right, I'm going to call up the puzzle now and then try and talk to you about what I was thinking when I was solving it on stage. Here we go, let's get cracking. So I'm just checking you can see this. Yes. 1 across, I would have read that first. Person giving rise to what's rebuffed by church. Church can be CE or CH. Person giving rise to, originator would be a 10-letter word, but I can't really see what's going on. I don't know how to parse the clue between definition and wordplay here yet. I have a suspicion that the definition's at the beginning of the clue and the wordplay at the end, but I don't know what's happening. And I don't waste much more time on that. I had a quick look at 6 across because it would also give me 2 opening down letters, which would be useful. What's potted before black? 1 of 2 in frame, a very snooker surface. And I did sort of vaguely think about pink being the ball potted before black and being a 4-letter word, but it didn't seem to fit the clue and would be a bit literal in a way. So I gave up on that. Black can be the letter B, but I didn't know what to do with that. So I tried having a look at 1 down instead. Bird seen around yard area and 1 not spotted, and 1 spotted in bush. Well, bird, there are a few short birds like tit and emu, for instance. Yard can be the letter Y, area can be the letter A, and I didn't really know what to make of this clue. I could think of an animal called a teira, which has a Y in something that is a word, and then the letter A. You might see a teira in the bush. I think it's a sort of mustelid animal. But tar for bird didn't seem to work, so I gave up on that and tried 2 down. Beginning to get worried at this point that I can't solve anything in this puzzle. Square stretched from city to halfway below River Bend. Again, I didn't take a lot of time over this and I didn't solve it. Square can be S. There's a lot of rivers in crosswords. Bend can be a lot of things. City could be LA or Troy or EC or UR. No idea. Tried the long one. It'd be very useful to get a long one going. Sea swell usually sees duck expelling 1 big quack. Didn't know what was going on there either. 1 big quack, I was thinking about a snake oil salesman, some sort of false doctor, a phrase for that perhaps, but I could not come up with it. So I moved on at this point, and now I was getting a bit worried. And I think about this point, I was maybe a minute in, and Matthew on my left started writing in the grid, which was a bit alarming because I haven't solved anything at this point. So 4 down, elderly opposed to line bypassing Brussels. Well, I wondered about elderly as the definition. I know 3 different words beginning with A for old, which are ancient, antique and archaic. And antique appealed because opposed to could be anti. So it seemed like I might have hit on the right idea here. I had to therefore make line bypassing Brussels somehow represent QUE. And then I thought that that could be a Q without the EU in the middle bit of that, without the third and fourth letters, which are EU. And I figured that was good enough, and that gave me something I could write in. Now, what I sometimes do when I'm trying to go at speed is, for some reason, if I'm struggling to look at the clues in order, I go from the last letter I filled in and see if I can look at that. So I looked at 15 down. Utter bores dash around in this, and I've got the starting letter, so it makes sense to look at this. Utter bores dash around in this. Well, it's a very short clue. There's a question mark there, so there's doubt over either the definition. The question mark can mean either there's a definition by example, or a questionable definition, or some sort of pun going on. And what I thought was, if I can think of something you could dash around in that fits this space, that could be handy. And I did think of estate car, which would fit 6-3 beginning with E. Utter can be state, and that bores can mean to bore into, so to occupy, to get contained by. Dash can be race. If you turn that around, you get E-car, and I was able to answer that fairly quickly, therefore, as estate car. Now, again, I get a first letter in a long answer, so I'm looking at 16 down with a C. Line, small and fine, cracking mug, question mark. I certainly wondered about this beginning with China, because a mug might well be made of china. And I couldn't really think of anything else that was going on there that I could get a handle on. Now, I literally don't know where I looked next, so maybe I looked at 8 down, didn't look all that exciting. Lifted 2-pound sea creature over hot burner. So many possibilities there for words that are kind of operational words in wordplay or that have synonyms. I tried 5 down. Extremely snug bed, curtailed short nap. And that T did make me think about siesta. Possibly my brain was also allowing me to access that extremely can often be used for a superlative. So it could be a word ending in est, which would really suit this siesta idea. So if we had a curtailed short nap, or maybe just a short nap, we've got siesta without its last letter. So I was trying to think of words that would fit blank blank S-I-E-S-T. I immediately thought of easiest, but that doesn't really mean extremely snug, and there is no bed element within that. And then I finally thought of coziest and thought that'll probably do, and worked out that cot curtailed would give you CO, siesta short would give you S-I-E-S-T, and that gives you the answer coziest. Then I'm pretty sure I moved on to 11 across. Again, we've got a first letter, and now I notice this is a phrase, 2-3-2. Creep along with moderate cramps. I didn't really think very long about it because the only phrase I could think of that would fit this pattern was so-and-so. And once I'd deduced that that could be described as a creep, because I think so-and-so is in the dictionary as a despicable person or something. So I figured this answer is so-and-so. I am also conscious that moderate can translate to so-so. And I think the way the clue is working is that along with is being cramped by moderate and is being contained by so-so. And that gives us so-and-so. So I had a look at 9 down. Features about French to be run in every survey. And if I'm honest, I was mainly thinking, do I know a word that will fit in the first section and might begin phrases? And I did, at the time I thought carpet was very plausible. Couldn't really see what that had to do with any of the clue. About French, maybe we're looking for the French word for about. To be run in every survey, didn't know what that meant. Gave up on the clue. Had a look at 7 down. Maybe I give up on these clues a bit quickly, but I find it serves in trying to get the whole puzzle done. 7 down. Large majority of summer crowds become confused. Don't know. I was thinking that could be various different bits of wordplay. Become confused sounds like an anagram, but you get an anagram out of the first 5 letters of crowds. Large majority of summer, maybe you break crowds away from summer here. Didn't really know what was going on and gave up on that one and went back to 8 down. Lifted £2 sea creature over hot burner. Now, I'm trying to remember if I did get this at this time. I don't think I did, so I wonder where I went next. I can't really see, I don't remember now. I probably had a look at 10 across, ending in a T. I wasn't that inspired by 1 across, where I'd not known what was going on, and I'd already thought it can end in CE or CH, and I still don't know what that's going to be. I probably had a look at all of these acrosses again. 10 across, cutting resistance apart from fringes. I did sort of wonder about words ending in but, which means apart from, and there is a 7-letter word sackbut for an old musical instrument, but I couldn't see how that was relevant. 12 across, though, ends in Q something E. Well, clearly it's going to be QUE. Alhambra's facade ornately bears what in Granada? And I did think of the word, well, I mean, there are a lot of words ending in QUE. I mean, we've already seen antique. There are things like Czech and Baroque, and words ending in esque as well. And this did look like it was referring to architecture, so that could be something ending in esque. And I did fairly quickly think of what turns out to be the right answer, which is arabesque. I don't know exactly what that is in architecture, but I was able to parse that Alhambra's facade is the letter A. That's all that means, is the first letter of Alhambra. An anagram of bears, ornately acting as an anagram indicator. And then what, as you would say it in Granada, in Spain, is que, which is very familiar to British TV viewers of a certain age who listened to Manuel in Fawlty Towers saying que a lot. So arabesque works. What's the definition there? Well, it's the whole clue. This is one of these and lit clues where presumably the Alhambra, the ornate palace in Granada, has a number of arabesques on it, or one, or something. I don't know quite what an arabesque is in architecture even now, but I certainly knew it was the answer. And at that point, I don't know where I went next in the puzzle, because I had struggled over in the top right corner. Maybe I had a look at 1 down again. We've now got an A at the end, and that sort of Tara makeup with a Y in it somewhere looks right, but I don't know what the answer is. Do you know what I did? I think in 2 down. By the way, at this point, I've done a certain amount of writing in the puzzle, and I'd suddenly got the impression that Matthew had started writing a lot, so I was getting quite worried that I was... Although these had come reasonably quickly, these 5 answers, 5's not many in a puzzle, and I was starting to think I was falling behind. So I was desperate to sort of get a bit more going. 2 down, square stretched from city to halfway below River Bend. Well, I was thinking about words ending in angle, which can be geometric figures like pentangle. And bend is angle. And I think I actually wrote angle into the grid, not really knowing if it was going to be a pentangle or some other form of angle, but hoping that that might help me. It looked like that was both in the definition and the word play. And I didn't really manage to concentrate on what the beginning of that clue might be. So I sort of moved on to 14 across with the G in it. Northern Nans avoided turning on gas. Well, a gas. I was looking for a gas, 5 letters with a G on the middle. Now, there are a lot of gases that end G something something, but they're normally longer, like nitrogen and oxygen. But argon fits the pattern. And Northern Nans avoided turning on. Looks like it's got either the letters for Nan involved or the letters for Gran. And in fact, it is Gran being turned, but with Northern having avoided it. So it's Northern that Nans avoided turning. That gives you ARG. And then the word on is in the clue. And that gives us argon. Had a quick look at 17. Immediately after get together, EU pondered borders. Pondered could be mused or something. I didn't really know what was going on there. Didn't know what the get together was. EU, is that just going to be the letters EU? Don't know. Gave up. Had a look at 14 down, beginning with an A. Now this would be very useful to get because again it has lots of opening letters for other words. Article regarding northbound pit stops in Monza course. Well, let's ignore the Formula 1 surface. Article A regarding perhaps northbound ER pit stops. Stops could mean blocks up, i.e. gets contained by. Frankly, I wasn't sure what was going on and couldn't really do it and didn't get much further. So I don't know where I went next. I think I started looking at answers in the bottom half for which I had no letters because I've kind of run out of the checked letters that I've put in the grid. 21 across, yes, I did solve this. Cold, in fact. Premium parking by hotel, saving time and energy. There are 4 words in that clue that often translate to single individual letters. Parking can be P, hotel can be H, time can be T, and energy can be E. You could even say that by can sometimes be X, as in multiplied by, and can sometimes be N, as in rock and roll. But let's ignore those because they're less common and think about P, H, T, and E. Well, they don't all seem to go together in this word. So I figured I'm going to have to translate one of the words into something else. And I thought of a short hotel name, which was Ritz. And I thought, what if we had Ritz saving, i.e. except for the time, and that would give us Riz. And then with the P and E, that would give prize for premium. And I was quite pleased with that because as soon as I'd seen premium, I'd thought of prime. And not only would that fit the same space and so on, it would also mean premium, and I just thought that was a useful thing to have solved at this point. I had a look at 14 down again and started thinking about that P, Monza course. And I thought maybe a course of food in Italy, and of course antipasto and antipasti, it's plural, are very popular in crosswords. I don't know why, they just are. But northbound pit is in it because tip appears in it, and that's pit running north. So I think what I actually did in the grid at this point was wrote antipast and then thought I'll look at the other clues and probably when I get to 27 I'll know whether it begins with an O or an I without having to parse this any further at the point. I can see now that article is an and regarding is as to, so I should have been able to write the O in the grid, but I didn't. I went back to 17 across and suddenly I could see that there is a hidden here. Because of the word together having T-H-E in it, I looked within the phrase together EU pondered and realised it effectively borders thereupon, which means immediately after. Very neat hidden that I wasn't really expecting. Now I think I had a look again at 3 down and realised that this second word could be general, just because it fits. And I think it was at this point that I thought, well, Surgeon General is a phrase. I don't remember this part very clearly, but I think I did at least think, oh yeah, Surgeon General, one big quack, one important doctor. Surge can be a sea swell as well. So I was pretty happy that that was going to be the answer, and I think I filled it in. And honestly, from that moment to this, I haven't seen the clues again until now. I don't know quite how the rest of it passes. So let's have a look at that. Sea swell, if that's a surge, in general is usually, and we have then duck, which is O for nothing or zero or O, expelling the I of in general. So I've not seen that before now, but there we go. I think probably now, I had a quick look at 27 across to see if I could work out whether it began with an O or an I. A binding profession, unwilling to spend pounds. Well, I immediately thought that you are bound by professing an oath. Could it be oath for the wordplay? Yes, that's loathe without the A. There are three ways of spelling loathe. In the sense of being loath to do something, it can be L-O-T-H or L-O-A-T-H. And in the sense of hate, it can be L-O-A-T-H-E. So that worked fine. Had a look at 22 down, beginning with an I and ending in a T. Keyhole that is reinforced on escaping from trap. Well, there the key has been separated from the hole in the clue. And that means probably key is going to be important on its own. And one definition of key that I'm familiar with from crosswords is a small island, and islet fits here, and I just wrote it in. And I thought, if there's any doubt about that, it'll be eliminated when we get 25 across later. I did have a look at 25 across now. Programs succeeded by screening everything about India. Everything is in that clue, and that could be all. And that might be reversed in this, but I didn't know what else was going on. I couldn't think of an answer that fitted very well, and I left that, tried 18 down. Scorers shown up clubs in current cup ties. Didn't really know what was going on there. Tried 19 across. Could be this balls knocked over square leg. And leg can be pin. And I thought, well, 9 pin fits here. So that is an interesting possibility, because that is something that a ball knocks over in bowling. And I thought, why 9? Well, we seem to have square in the clue. And of course, 9 is a square. It is the square of 3. So that went in. Had a look at 28 across. In the act of playing chess move, sorry, nearly giving away the answer there, but I don't think I knew what that was at this time. 26 across, we've got the P. Cook briefly flipped pan with smallest amount of bacon grease. I was thinking, was that lardon? Not sure what the bacon grease is there. Cook briefly, poach without the last letter, not sure. And I think I gave up on that. Had a look at 23 across. Endless rubbish bagged by scouts periodically coming together. Periodically can be often used to mean every other letter, and scouts seems to be there for that sort of purpose. So that's either giving SOT or CUS. So I spent a little bit of time trying to think of whether I knew something that began with C and ended in US, or something that began with SO perhaps and ended in T. And coming together made me think of consensus, which I realized was the middle part of nonsense. So that's endless rubbish, nonsense without its ends, put into those periodic letters from scouts and giving us consensus. Now I went back to 18 down. Scorer, I realized, can be a composer. They're writing scores all the time. And cup is there, so Puccini looks very plausible. Scorers shown up clubs in current cup ties. I think I started writing in Puccini and then worried about how I was going to justify it. But it didn't take long to see clubs being tied up. Clubs is the letter C, being tied up by in I cup, where I can be electric current. 24 down, large drops in circuits, elevated battery discharge. Didn't really know what to make of that. Back to 28 across. In the act of playing chess move, well, I did suddenly think of the chess move fianchetto, and I don't know what that chess move is. I believe it's something to do with bishops and long diagonals, but I'm not 100% sure. And I didn't really know as I started writing it if there was wordplay here, or if it was a cryptic definition, or what was going on. And finally realized that in the act of is a beautiful anagram of fianchetto, because in the act of is a phrase used all the time in English. Nobody thinks, oh yeah, that's a classic 10-letter anagram, but it is. And playing is a very legitimate anagram indicator. Lovely clue. I mean, probably my favourite in the puzzle, 28 across. So back to 24 down, which now ends in an O, rather surprisingly. And now I could think that a battery discharge might not be an electric battery, but might be firing from a set of guns, which are also a battery. So salvo works. Why would that be large drops in circuits elevated? Because ovals reversed with the L dropping a position gives you salvo. And ovals can be circuits, because you can either in an orbit, that would be an oval, or around a track. Some racetracks are called ovals. So on to 26 across, trying to get this cook briefly. And finally I thought of parboil, which means to part boil something, to not fully cook it. Now, flipped pan with smallest amount of bacon grease, I realized could be wrap being flipped over, and if you wrap something, you give it a bad reputation, or a bad review, you pan it. So that gives us par. The smallest amount of bacon is the letter B, and then grease can be oil, and that makes up parboil. Now, before leaving the bottom of the puzzle, I hoped I could do 25 across. Programs succeeded by screening everything about India. It took me a while to think of a word that fitted this at all, but once I remembered that it seemed to have the word all within it, I did think of syllabi, a possible plural of syllabus. They can also be syllabuses. And that has by screening all, or kind of covering it within it, hidden within, succeeded, which can be S, and India, which in the phonetic alphabet is I. And that gives us syllabi. Now, what I did not think at this time, and would come back to bite me later, was that seemed to have confirmed eyelet, which I'd filled in entirely based on the word key. So I will come back to that thought a bit later. I moved on to 16 down, line, small and fine, cracking mug. Well, I had thought that mug can mean a face, but now I thought of the phrase crow's feet. Doesn't fit here, but crow's foot does, and presumably if you have crow's feet, a single one of them is a crow's foot. And I filled that in on the basis that this was probably a cryptic definition, because the use of mug was cryptic enough that that's not the use that you cracking a mug sounds very much like breaking a piece of porcelain or china or crockery. However, this is a brilliant andlit as well, where the wordplay is row, S for small, F for fine, cracking the word coot, which means somebody stupid, as does mug. And so the whole, again, this is an andlit, so the whole clue acts as wordplay for crow's foot, but it also, the whole clue acts as a definition of a small line beside your eyes, cracking your face, a crow's foot. Now 9 down, ending looks like earth or search, and market research fits here, and survey is mentioned in the clue. So that must be right. The reason for that is, I don't know. Let's have a look at this and see if I can work out the reason why this is market research. I mean, as I say, let's not write it wrong. As I say, I just filled it in. Features about French to be. Oh, there's être in the middle. So it's marks around être, the French verb to be. And then R for run in each, which is every. So you get some indication of how uncertain I am about the wordplay of these words. Now, E here, and we've got a policeman mentioned in the clue. Well, that's likely to be a cop. Now, you can't put cop into a word in its ordinary order, but you can put it in reversed and you get epoch. And that's he with cop getting in, and then it's lying about, it's turned around, and you get epoch, which is an age. Now, 8 down looks again like it'll end in RTH or RCH, and we've got hot burner at the end of that clue. So at this point, I realized that blowtorch would fit and is definitely a hot burner. And we've got the lifting of 2 within that. OWT is the number 2 reversed. The pound and then the lifting of that gives us, I don't know what the rest of this is. Is it? Let me get the door. Right, so this is, I think, 2 lb being lifted, in fact, 2 pound. And then the sea creature is orc, and that's placed over the word H for hot. So hot burner is not the definition, burner is the definition, and we've got blowtorch. So now I'm having a look at 13 across. Let unoccupied kitchen cooks set joints down. Well, knelt fits, and that is kind of put your knees or joints on the ground. And basically unoccupied kitchen is K and N, and that's anagramming or getting cooked along with let to give knelt. 6 across ends in a B. What's potted before black, 1 of 2 in frame? I'm still finding that a bit difficult, even though black equals B is fine. So I'm having a look at 7 down. And large majority of summer crowds become confused. This is addle, and this contains the most of adder. Why is adder summer? Because something that adds sums. So you could describe anybody doing an addition as either a summer or an adder. It's perhaps a little bit jokey, but it's a bit of a pun, but that's fine. And that is crowding L for large. So most of adder is crowding L for large, and you get addle, meaning to become confused. 6 across now. What's potted before black, 1 of 2 in frame? Well, finally I start thinking about a door frame, and what you have standing upright in that with the lintel on top is 2 jambs, JMB, and that leaves what's potted to be jam, and that's what you do with the substance, the preserve, jam. When you make it, you pot it. So there we go. Having a look at 10 across now. Cutting resistance apart from fringes. Resistance can be the letter R, and there is a very useful 6-letter word that you can put R in to make a 7-letter word. And one of them means apart from. That's how I got at this, weirdly, at this point. And that's putting R into except to give excerpt. So what the clue is saying is cutting, excerpt, is resistance, the letter R, that apart from, except, is fringing or going round the fringes of. So that becomes excerpt. 2 down looks like rectangle now, a word I had not thought of until I got that C, but maybe the obvious word. Square stretched from city to halfway below River Bend. Well, city is EC. To halfway is the word TO taken halfway, just T. Below river is putting that ECT below the letter R, and then comes the angle, which I'd spotted earlier. And that gives us square stretched as the definition for rectangle, which is very pretty. Now, one down at this point, bird seen around yard area and one spotted in bush. The only way I could see to get a Y into this now was in the second place, and that would be hyena. And there's the hen, that's the bird. I hadn't thought of that before. Hen around Y, A for area, and a hyena is spotted in the bush, not because you might see it there, but because it has spots on and it lives in the bush, which is kind of the wild area of Africa. And this all brings us to one across. And at this point, I know nobody else has handed in, but I have been aware that at various times Matthew has been writing quite quickly and quite loudly on his desk and could well be closing in on a finish. So I'm thinking if I can just get one across and hand it in, that'll be fine. And I'll probably win. I was confident about everything I'd written in the grid at this point. Not to a degree of utter certainty, but confident. And I looked at one across and thought, well, I'll probably know the word that fits here, and there probably won't be more than one. And I looked at it and I thought, I don't know what that is. Person giving rise to what's rebuffed by church. And I thought, well, it must be made up of a four-letter, it must be a compound of a four-letter word and a six-letter word, which could be search, just like it was at the end of market research. Or stance, like happenstance, or instance, or starch. And then I thought, oh, hard starch, or horn starch. They might be compounds, but whatever they would be doesn't seem to be given by this clue at all. Church could be CH at the end. Church can be abbreviated either to CH, which is how it's represented on maps, or CE, the Church of England. So I'm very confident the last letter will be E or H, but that's not helping me with the rest of the word. And seconds start ticking by, and I kind of come to the realization that whatever this word is, I don't think I know it. And if I do know it, I somehow can't access it. I'm wondering if there is a word based, I know there is a word haruspex, something to do with fortune telling. And I'm wondering, can you do haruspence if you are a haruspex? It turns out you can do haruspicy, which I didn't know on the day, but it's close, but it's not right. And in the end, I basically have to start going back to the clue and studying it. I am also wondering at this point, are we in a situation here where this word is going to be so hard and so difficult to solve and so unknown that nobody's going to get it, and I should just enter my solution with 29 out of 30 correct answers and be the first person to achieve that? Because that's kind of a strategy you might have to adopt at some point. If everybody's sitting there with 10 minutes to go, somebody's just going to hand it in, and if nobody gets the same answer, that's going to be the determiner. So the time would be then. So I'm kind of giving myself in my head a few more minutes at this, but desperately hoping that somebody else down the row isn't going to hand their script in while I'm puzzling over it. But it's time to break down the clue a bit more. Person giving rise to what's rebuffed by church. Well, what is interesting in this clue? We had earlier what in the clue for arabesque being que in Spanish. What in English in the same sort of sense is A, E-H. And there is an H here, but how are we going to fit EH into this? Well, we could rebuff it. So maybe it begins H-E. And then we've got things like heresy or heroes as possible beginnings to this. But I'm still really stuck, because if we've got what's rebuffed, maybe that's HE at the beginning, and we've got CH for church at the end, or CE. Then the bit that comes between is R something, S something, A something. And there's not much clue to do that. If there's a definition at the beginning, say person giving, then you've just got rise to for that. And in fact, it doesn't even allow you to put that HE at the beginning to be what's rebuffed. And it must have taken me, well, I mean, a long time for an individual clue for me, but eventually I suddenly realized, what if rebuffed is, it's rebuffing someone giving a rise as well as what, EH. Okay, now I can leave my last two letters to be the church. And then I have something A, something S, something R. I've reversed my 6-letter middle. Some person giving rise, well, a razor would be giving a rise. And I decided that is exactly what I'm doing. And I literally wrote razor A in backwards. And I wrote the actual letters into the grid backwards. And like, it begins heresiarch. Well, there are a lot of words that end in arch, monarch and oligarch, that sort of thing. Anarch, I think, is a word, and so on. So that could be a leader. And I figured, my hand started shaking as I was writing this last letter in because I was very confident this was right. I was very nervous that someone else was about to finish. And I wrote in the last letter and held up my script and handed it in, and then immediately got out my phone, on silent mode, of course, because I don't want to get disqualified at this point, but I think I have the right to check what's in the dictionary on my phone. Is heresiarch a word? And it turns out it is. At which point I was very relieved. Now, let's call up the dictionary, in fact, and show you the word, and actually let you see it. Here we go. There we are. So, heresiarch, which is how I'm pronouncing it. Maybe it's heresiarch. No, it says heresiarch here. A leader of a heretical movement. Well, that's a perfectly reasonable thing to be. What I didn't appreciate while solving was that this is yet another andlet in the puzzle. I mean, imagine John Guiver, who we discovered had written the puzzle afterwards, has thought, I'll put heresiarch in this puzzle because it's a great word. And then I'll write a clue for it that not only defines the answer, but gives all the wordplay. And he's actually achieved it. Because it was razor A being rebuffed and then CH. That's the wordplay, as I've explained. But the whole definition is the whole clue. A person giving rise to what the church rejects or rebuffs. Somebody fostering a heresy is a heresiarch. Brilliance. Again, the whole puzzle is utterly brilliant, but really difficult, not just because you might, like me, not know heresiarch. Apparently, Liam Hughes in the audience, who finished within a minute or two of me, and had only missed the final by 1 spot, knew the word. That's very impressive. I didn't. I did know everything else, which is a relief. Fianchetto, syllabi, crow's foot in the singular. There's a lot of words here that you might not know. Arabesque, the singular antipasto, even the phrase Surgeon General. They're not absolutely standard words in the language. What I thought a minute after handing in was, I never worked out what the wordplay on eyelet was. And then I thought, oh my goodness, what if the clue had said key to begin with, which I remembered, and then changes direction to become a body of water. It could have said that in some crossword way. And the S might have to change to an N to give the answer inlet. And having handed in my script, I no longer have the clue to check what it said. So I literally had to sit there for the next 10 minutes until everybody had handed in a script and the answer and the results were announced to find out whether I'd won or not. This is the sort of, I mean, obviously, all sorts of other mistakes are possible. I was confident I'd got prize right, and I was wondering whether anybody else might have written prime there. I don't know. There are other words which I think, as you've seen as we've gone along, I haven't always known the exact parsing of the wordplay as we've gone, but I was pretty confident that all of them met their definitions at least, apart perhaps from eyelet, which might have had something later in the clue that was a different definition. Now, in fact, sorry, I need to remove Chambers again so you can see the definition, the wordplay here, because it is brilliant. Keyhole that is reinforced on escaping from trap. Well, there's no wordplay to do with inlet. What there is a homophone wordplay. So an eyelet is the little hole in your shoe that the lace passes through that is reinforced by a bit of leather or tape to make it stronger. So that is a hole that is reinforced, that sort of eyelet. On escaping from trap means when you say it out of your mouth or your trap, it sounds the same as this kind of eyelet. That's beautiful wordplay that I did not appreciate while solving, or indeed remember so that I could appreciate it while sitting on stage. But that was my experience of the final. I was very relieved to win it. I was very surprised that 4.5 minutes elapsed after the 9 minutes I had taken before Roger Crabtree handed in, and then Matthew, I think, almost immediately after that. David Howe, pretty much hot on their heels as well. And then I think Chloe got stuck not only on one across, but just didn't really have time to go back and check another one or two of the entries. But it was a very hard puzzle, and I can really forgive anybody any difficulty they have with it. I was very relieved to get through that. Indeed, the first 3 puzzles of the day all had some very hard parts about them, and the middle 3 weren't easy either. So it was a real stretch of a day overall, but obviously greatly enjoyable, and obviously I'm thrilled to have won the trophy. But very well done to all the competitors, to all the setters who were involved, John Guiver in particular for this one, of course, and to the organisers. Great fun. Thank you for watching, and hope this was of some enlightenment to you. It's a joy to record this. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.